How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your May 2019 horoscope for Gemini, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you. There's a lot going on this month that is kind of like turning the story. I've been saying this in my other horoscopes, stemming back from January 2019 when we had the eclipses in Capricorn until we have the eclipses in July this summer. This is kind of the turning point in that narrative and of the story. So I do think that May is going to play a very crucial role in what kind of ends up happening later on this summer with the eclipses. So starting off this month, at the end of April and into the beginning of May, Saturn is stationing retrograde in Capricorn. Now, Saturn has been direct in Capricorn for the past few months, and Saturn, of course, is the planet of limitations, boundaries, restrictions, discipline. And so, while Saturn rules all these things, Saturn being direct for the past few months usually brings on a lot more challenges, obstacles, barriers, walls, and limitations that can be more imposed on you. Also, if you have a day chart and Saturn may be a little bit more constructive in your chart, this is about maybe taking on more responsibility. Now, Saturn has been transiting your 8th house, and of course the 8th house is all about, we've been talking about this for the past few months, but it's about not only death, other people's money, taxes, inheritances, secrets. It's a very hidden house, and you don't always know what's going on there. But Saturn stationing retrograde is basically, for the past few months, what problems, what challenges, walls, and obstacles you could have gotten in that area. Saturn stationing retrograde is going to be the time to face those obstacles and those challenges with a sense of discipline, maturity, and being basically kind of putting in the hard work that you need to. Saturn stationing retrograde is also a time to take on greater responsibility with these things and basically ensure an integral structure with how you organize your 8th house dealings. So then on May 4th, we're going to have the new moon in Taurus, and this is happening in your 12th house. This is kind of a weird lunation. Now, when you have a new moon, you have both of the luminaries in one sign, so they're very much lighting up and kind of focusing on one house or one sign, one part of your chart. New moons are a time to where you want to basically clean out your energy, still out the water, and make things more calm and peaceful and kind of reset your intentions. Now, in the sign of Taurus, the new moon in Taurus is all about what are we setting our intentions on with growth. The idea of Taurus, it's fixed earth. This is in the northern hemisphere. In the springtime, this is when the sign Taurus is when the sun is in Taurus. And this is about making things grow. The grass is green, the flowers are blooming, and we want to keep that stability within the growth, within the abundance of life and things living. That's kind of like Taurian energy. Now, this new moon is wanting to reset all of that energy, but this is happening in your 12th house. And the 12th house is a little weird because it's about the subconscious, unacknowledged or repressed parts of yourself, hidden enemies, prisons, and things that can kind of bind you. It's a house that is an aversion to the ascendant, so you can't always see what's going on there. And so this new moon is going to be a really good time to reset your energy on parts of yourself that, hey, maybe you don't recognize and that you're not aware of. What parts of you are growing? What parts of you are doing great? Where do you need to be more, have more security and have more stability and have more foundation in what your beliefs are? And maybe it's time to kind of take off the stubbornness at times that the sign Taurus can face and really look at what do you not acknowledge and what do you, sometimes suppress and not really bring up to light. And then on May 6th, we're going to have Mercury entering Taurus as well. So Mercury, the planet of communication, logic, ideas, speaking, our mindset, he's going into the sign of Taurus where Mercury's main goal is going to be, again, keeping that growth, keeping that sustainability of this is what I'm growing into, things are fertile, where do I want to find solid value in? And Mercury is basically crunching the numbers and trying to find that. But again, Mercury's entering your 12th house where you're going to be uncovering parts about yourself that you find valuable and that you want to have more security and stability in that you may not have been aware of before. And so this is going to bring up a lot more feelings of like, I value this and I didn't even realize it and it's time to go for it. Because 2 days later on May 8th, Mercury is going to conjoin Uranus. And this is important because as Uranus goes through your 12th house for the next 7 years, there's going to be a lot of, breakthroughs and breakdowns with that 12th house stuff of repressed and unacknowledged parts of yourself. And so as Mercury, the communicator, the messenger, being on top of Uranus, basically putting him in a megaphone, kind of speaking out that message, don't be surprised on May 8th when Mercury conjoins Uranus, like, there may be some stuff that's like, that you could just not acknowledge and repress, something that's more internal, that kind of comes out, that you're starting to find more value and solid ground in that you weren't really, not necessarily, like, you weren't really expecting. Then as we move on, a couple days later, on May 15th, we're going to have Venus enter Taurus. Now, this is also really positive, but again, weird. Venus is, of course, the planet of love and relationships and value and connection. She wants you to indulge in everything that you can ever want, and she wants you to have those things and enjoy those things. Venus is entering her home sign of Taurus, which is, one of her favorite signs to be in, where she can be grounded, she can have stability, she can grow the abundance of, value that she has, and she can keep that sustainability there. Now, Venus is entering your 12th house, though, where, again, this planet of value and connection in her home sign, she's going into this part where it's about repressed and unacknowledged parts of yourself. What are you not really facing? And while Venus is in Taurus during this time, this is going to feel like, what needs to come up, what needs to be acknowledged that does hold value and that does hold ground. Because on the next day, on May 16th, Venus is also going to conjoin Uranus, just like Mercury did. However, this time where Mercury is speaking the message of Uranus, Venus is bringing in the nice things of Uranus. Venus is being electrified, basically electrically charged by Uranus. This is like, that feeling of I'm finding value in this. It's breaking you free. It's a liberating feeling of feeling solid and something new again that you've had inside of you that you just weren't expecting to pop up at this time. Also on May 16th, we're going to have Mars enter Cancer. And this is pretty important because Mars, of course, the planet of action, energy, drive, intention, is entering its sign of fall, meaning Mars doesn't really work all that well in Cancer. And this is happening in your second house. So, of course, Mars inflammates, he heats up, he severs, he cuts. But in the sign of Cancer, it's more focused on necessity and what needs to be protected. Cancer doesn't want to be vulnerable, so Mars wants to defend that. And this is happening in your second house of your money, of your finances, of what you own and what you materially possess. Now, as Mars goes through here, you may be spending a lot more money than you want to, and it may be just on basic necessities and stuff like that. Mars in Cancer, Mars going through your second house isn't the best time for finances in general. However, with Mars being in Cancer in the second house, this is definitely going to be a time to where it comes to where you're spending your money and what you're putting your money into needs to be more focused on what's going to protect you and what's going to nurture you. What are the most important necessities that you need? Then on May 21st, we're going to have the Sun enter Gemini and Mercury enter Gemini, and Mercury go Cazimi under the Sun. So for one, if you're a Gemini Sun, happy birthday. Two, we have the Sun, the luminary, the thing that brings light, going into your first house of yourself, your personality, your identity, and your body and how you see things. Mercury, of course, the communicator, the messenger, is also going into Gemini, which is its home sign. So Mercury can basically act properly in the way it needs to. With Mercury being in Gemini, you're going to have a lot better time expressing yourself, being able to communicate yourself a lot better. But what's important about May 21st is that Mercury and the Sun are both going into Gemini, and Mercury's going Cazimi, basically meaning purified by fire and getting pierced by the Sun. Mercury, where it's under the beams of the Sun, it can't really understand things all too clear, but then it jumps into the sign of Gemini, gets cleaned out by the Sun, and it has a full understanding of itself and what it needs to do. And this is in your first house of yourself, of your personality. So don't be surprised on May 21st when your birthday starts rolling around or the Sun's in your first house, you really start getting clear on more about stuff that was a little bit not clear about yourself. Then on the last day of May, on May 31st, we're going to have Venus trine Saturn. And this is going to be very positive because as Venus is in your 12th house of, repressed, unacknowledged parts of yourself, it's wanting you to redefine that. It's wanting you to bring out better parts of yourself. It's going to be trining Saturn, which is in your 8th house. And so Saturn in the 8th house is you're going through this change and you don't really know what's going to be on the other side. But as it stations retrograde, it's you've got to take on more of this responsibility. You've got to take on these challenges. Venus being in Taurus in your 12th house, letting you be more of yourself and bringing up stuff you didn't even know you had, and having that trine Saturn, this is a lot of constructive energy with hey, things that you didn't even know were happening for you in the woodworks is going to happen for you in a really positive way. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, sharing, and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be seeing you next month.